Good to have you join us on the program. GIZ in Nigeria has been in the Partnership for Sustainable Development since 1974. It is an enterprise that acts on the basis of the values and fundamentals of the Federal Republic of Germany. GIZ operates in developing countries, emerging economies, and industrialized states to implement international cooperation for sustainable development. On the program today, we shall be focusing on GIZ's interventions in governance, economic growth, and sundry development in Nigeria and the ECOWAS sub-region. And my guest is the Country Director, GIZ Nigeria and ECOWAS, Ms. Hommers. The program continues just after this time out. Stay with us. Thanks for making time to be on the program, Hommers. Well, on your profile, you summarize Nigeria in one paragraph, and I want to know what exactly you meant by this. From the northeast, where the Sultan of Sokoto has his seat, to the middle belt landscapes that provide the country's food basket, to the center of unity in the capital city Abuja, to Nollywood and the cultural and commercial hub of Lagos, the economic powerhouse of Africa, Nigeria, or as called in pidgin English, Niger, has many faces to show. How do you mean?
Mr. Odin, let me first thank you for having me on the show. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here. It's actually a paragraph I wrote myself as part of GIZ's country brochure. And I myself have been in Nigeria since 2015 on different assignments, currently as country director of GIZ. And it's because of the vast diversity that Nigeria has to offer. It's one of the most fascinating countries that I've ever lived in. And it was important for us to also depict this cultural diversity, the economic diversity that we find in this country. I had the great honor to actually meet the Sultan of Sokoto. And Sokoto, if you compare it to the south, is of course a very different area. GIZ actually operates in most of the states in Nigeria, so we do operate in all of these contexts to support the Nigerian government, and we wanted to depict for people who are interested in our work the full picture of what Nigeria has to offer.
Did you realize you defined Nigeria in one paragraph?
I didn't, but I do understand that there is a tendency to focus on the things that are concerning in Nigeria, but I think we also have to showcase what is not so concerning and what this country has to offer if we can tap into it. And if we look into Lagos, I just returned from there yesterday, the creativity, the art industry, Nollywood, but also the potential of the industries, that's something that we also have to take into account. There is many different faces of Nigeria, and there's still many things that I would like to see and learn.
Okay, now from the profile I see about GIZ in Nigeria, yes, it's a German platform, right?
So GIZ, you asked me to spell out
yes.
once the German.
GIZ.
Yeah, it's Deutsche Gesellschaft für internationale Zusammenarbeit. So German Development Corporation is actually...
In short, German Development Corporation?
Yes, German Development Corporation is actually the technical arm of what Germany has to offer in its cooperation with developing and emerging countries. It's owned by the German government. We work on behalf of the German government in those areas that Germany agrees on with partner countries. So every 2 years there is negotiations between the German government and Nigeria on which priority areas they want to cooperate with. And one mechanism in order to then work together is the work of what the technical cooperation GIZ then implements jointly with the Nigerian government. Okay,
in simple terms, I will ask, in your activity, let me say, as much as you have not clearly defined it or openly said it there, cutting across, will I say you're gender sensitive, you're dealing with state and non-state actors, and you're also covering the aged? Does it cut across?
It cuts across. So what is important to us is, of course, as German government organization, we stand for the values of the German government, which means that we have a very holistic sustainability approach. And we take issues of sustainability very serious. And we do include topics of gender anti-discriminatory approaches, do no harm principles at the core of what we do. We have 3 focal areas that we currently implement in Nigeria. This has just recently been agreed between Germany and the Nigerian government. Those core areas are training and sustainable growth for decent jobs. That's core area 1. A lot of economic growth, skills development, youth employment programs. Then we have 1 core area, responsibility for our planet, climate and energy, where we have a large renewable energy and energy efficiency program that is actually co-funded by the European Union. And then we have a 3rd core area that is called One World Without Hunger, where we support agricultural activities in Nigeria. And it depends on what activity it is, on how we work together with the Nigerian government, but also with private sector, with civil society and with other actors.
Okay, let's go to specifics. For instance, let me pick from the avalanche I have here. Skills development for youth employment, pro-poor growth and promotion of employment in Nigeria, tech entrepreneurship initiative. How does it work?
Excellent question. So just recently when I was in Lagos, we have opened a new center. It's a joint cooperation with the ministry, the Federal Ministry of Labor and Employment. It's the Nigerian-German Center for Jobs, Migration and Reintegration. What we do there, we have a joint office with the Ministry of Labor and Employment in Lagos, and we offer to all Nigerians, especially those who are very vulnerable and the youth, employment opportunities, career counseling, training, skills development. In all of our activities, we join and interlink what those different programs have to offer. So if we look into the Skills for Youth Employment program, there is a strong focus on long-term vocational training. Long-term vocational training is an area that Germany has a great expertise in due to our vocational approach, vocational system approach. So we do offer long-term vocational training. We work with the ministry and with federal actors to advise on how the vocational sector with regards to certification, standardization can be improved. But at the same time, we also do on-the-ground work by bringing people into vocational trainings. With the Pro-Poor Growth and Employment Promotion Program, we then help people who are skilled. That's part of the skills program. We help people who do want to fund their own business, for instance, to have the means to do so with business trainings. And we also provide micro, small and medium enterprises with access to finance, for instance, with support to register the business. So all of this goes hand in hand. And then for the large number of unemployed youth in Nigeria, we also offer short-term trainings for them to be able to get on their feet and then progress from there. And training can also be continuous. So I had the pleasure to also listen to some beneficiaries while I was in Lagos. For instance, there was a woman who participated in a training and now she's able to produce her own paint for houses, industrial sites, which is predominantly male actually, but now she has found her niche in Lagos and is making quite some good income on this. But we also heard from a woman who actually had a good job. She came from corporate communications, and because of her personal interest, she decided to switch her career to elderly care. And you asked me about the elderly, because she has a strong dedication and motivation to start on filling a gap that is currently opening in Nigeria with regards to more elderly being there and needing proper care once they're older. So she's now even employing others and training them how to take care of older people, and she has been counseled and trained also through those programs.
That leads me to the next question.
Yes.
If, for instance, you said, how many states of the country are you covering?
We are currently in 22 states in the country.
Can you give it a quick scroll?
Well, actually, the only states that we are not
Exactly.
in at are states where it is more challenging out of security concerns for us than in others,
Okay.
because we have staff and officers in a number of states. So most of them are in the northwest and in central Nigeria, those where we are not.
Okay. Now, the question that begs for interrogation now is, you're here for Nigeria and ECOWAS. We'll get to ECOWAS. How do I get to know that you exist? How do I get to know I qualify to benefit from what you have for the people?
Okay, so there is different ways that you can learn about jazz. As I said, it's government-to-government cooperation. So the government is also speaking about jazz, or you can learn through the activities that the government does or those that we work together with. But GIZ Nigeria and ECOWAS has its own Facebook channel, its own Twitter handle, so you can also follow us there, and we are promoting a number of trainings and activities there. If you need more information on what I just explained with regards to job promotion, skills development, there is also a joint web page that you can visit. It's called startfinder.de, where you can find more information. There is many activities. We also usually invite media to our events, and I look forward to having more cooperation also with NTA and being here as well. Yeah.
Okay, now let's look at, you're not just, besides the fact that with Nigeria you started from 1974, right?
That's correct.
That is,
not me myself, but
precisely two score and 4 years, right? That is almost 40-something years, almost 50 years now, right?
Yeah.
Now, about 48 or 47 years now. Now, quickly, you later on veered into ECOWAS. How do you operate within ECOWAS? How many countries in the ECOWAS sub-region are you covering?
So there is 15 member states of ECOWAS, right? And the commission of ECOWAS, so its headquarters, is based in Abuja. So if we look into the challenges that Nigeria is facing, you will find out very quickly that many of those challenges are not unique for Nigeria. Those are challenges that a number of countries in the region are facing as well. This is why it's important to support those countries to even embark further on regional integration. It's something that Germany, of course, as part of the European Union, has very good experiences in cooperating with others, especially when we look in topics around peaceful and inclusive societies, trade, industrialization, agriculture. All of that are topics, energy, of course, are topics where regional cooperation is needed. It depends on the program that we are looking into, on how many countries we work with. For instance, we do support regional pandemic prevention, a program funded by the German Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development jointly with the European Union. It started after the Ebola crisis, and this is where it became very apparent that not a single country can face such a health challenge. And it, of course, is now also supporting with regards to COVID-19, with regards to communication between the countries, with regards to digital mapping of outbreaks. There is actually a digital app that has been developed, the so-called Hommers app, that is now also looked at very eagerly at the European Union, because a number of things in intercommunication actually work better here, because digitalization sometimes works better here with a lot of innovation going on than in Europe. So it's learning on both sides. And this country, the Regional Pandemic Prevention Program, is in 4 countries currently in the region, whereas we have other countries that work across the ECOWAS region.
Let's take the one that has to do with Africa, for instance. Where are we with it? Competitive Africa Rice Initiative.
It's one of my favorite programs. So let me perhaps take a step back. When I talked about our skills development programs earlier and the Pro Growth and Employment Program, you're right, we are here since 1974, and we still stand to support Nigeria in the agenda and priorities that the Nigerian government is setting. Unfortunately, I told you I've been here since 2015. Since then, Nigeria has witnessed a severe economic recession, 2016-17. COVID-19 brought across another economic downturn. The unemployment rates are rising, although the Nigerian government is dedicated in supporting this with programs, but at the same time there is economic challenges that prevent that that it's progressing as it should. So currently, if we look into a labor force of around 70 million people in Nigeria, around 1/3 of them is unemployed. And 60% of the 70 million people are below 34 years of age. So there is need to find more employment opportunities for those people. In 2020, during COVID-19, when it was quite difficult for people to sustain, especially if they had small businesses, more and more people turned to farming, small scale farming, smallholder farming, including rice. And a strong focus of what we do with the agriculture programs is on ensuring that farmers farm in a way that is sustainable and that increases their yield and helps them to market their products better, because a lot of those smallholder farmers currently cannot sustain a living from what they make. With the Competitive African Rice Initiative, over the last 5 years, we've reached more than 100,000 people who were able to actually increase their yield tremendously, partly by more than 150%, meaning that they were risen out of poverty. Those 100,000 people, they were working on less than $2 a day before and were able to increase what they were earning. What is important then is to connect them to markets, to help them market their products. We also support the industrialization, we support rice millers, we support rice trade. So it's a whole value chain.
How many countries are participating in this?
In the Competitive African Rice Initiative, it's currently 3 focal countries. Okay. But the more interesting point is that Germany just agreed with ECOWAS to merge 2 programs, that's the rice program, with another regional program that we have, that's the cashew program. And the rice and the cashew program will then jointly implement across the 15 member states of ECOWAS. So it's going to be expanded. The rice program is actually co-funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So we always try to boost the German financing that GIZ receives from the German government through other international partners who then co-fund into the activity.
The other one that captivates me is the, let me pick through now, the energy initiative for universities. What informed this?
So I told you that we have one focal area in which we work on renewable energy and energy efficiency. In all of our
scaling up university electrification in Nigeria.
Exactly. So in all of our activities, we try to also look at the side of how do we bring the next experts up? How can we help that people in Nigeria are skilled? Through the skills program, through the energy program, through a number of other programs, we have come to understand that there is a huge gap at universities in the curricula that they use to ensure that people who have a degree match what the industry is looking for. So if we look into renewable energy, there is huge job opportunities in the green job market, but there is not many people who have knowledge on renewable energy. So this is actually a financing that was provided by German Foreign Office, where we have supported GIZ with an embedded expert who was embedded at the University of Ibadan and has helped to revise the curriculum for engineering with regards to solar electricity content, and at the same time has also helped to build up demonstration sites for the students at the University of Ibadan. And based on this approach, there were also professors and trainers from other universities who were trained, for instance, Lagos, Cross River, also the University of Zaria, in order to ensure that this approach can be spread. And it's something that we're doing more and more to ensure that in what we support the Nigerian government with, that this expertise is also reflected in the training and educational sector.
Okay, which means the scaling up university education in Nigeria they are not compatible in terms of workability or approach with Nigerian energy support program? Because looking at it initially, I thought scaling up university electrification in Nigeria means provision of the infrastructure. I didn't know it has to do with this curriculum.
It is both. So
Both.
in the Nigerian Energy Support Program, for instance, and it's a very good example because this is how GIZ usually works. So the energy program, NESP, has supported the Nigerian government on developing the renewable energy and energy efficiency law, right? Jointly, of course, with the Ministry of Power. But then at the same time, the question is, how do we bring this down into implementation now? So one of the main implementation partners of GIZ is the Rural Electrification Agency. What we have done is we supported the Nigerian government in piloting an approach of how to bring affordable electrification to rural areas through solar systems, mini-grids, and how to provide for a financing mechanism that will allow for affordability for those who benefit from the electricity in rural areas and for those who then sell the electricity. And this approach has informed the huge mini-grid approaches that the Rural Electrification Agency has been rolling out since. There is a financing mechanism with loan support from the Rural Electrification Agency that's based on those pilots that GIZ supported with in 2017-18. So through those GIZ activities, more than 16,000 people in rural areas now can benefit from solar electricity, and those are areas that were unelectrified completely before.
Okay, before we wrap up, I know you have a huge space to cover, but within the time the program allows, we'll cover as much mileages as we can. Now, supporting developing economies, emerging economies in the area of sustainable development, 1974 to date, would you say really this project, whatever GIZ is doing, has impacted positively, immensely on the Nigerian economy and the ECOWAS sub-region?
I mean, the ECOWAS sub-region is 15 member states, right? Yes. Nigeria is the biggest one, so let me start from there. Yeah. I do think in what we do, and that's technical cooperation, on technical topics with those line ministries, there have been great improvements. When we look into the frameworks, and I just talked about renewable energy, for instance, and those frameworks were not there before, but also the systems and processes in order to implement frameworks and to allow for investments of the private sector were not as existent before. So I think this is where we can definitely see progress. I do think it's still important to point out that there is, of course, also discussions amongst international development partners. When we look into the progress of Nigeria in certain indices, there is, of course, a point of concern. There is a recent report by the Chandler Institute on Good Government, for instance, where Nigeria in the comparison ranks as country 102 out of 104. Yeah. And that's also, of course, due to the insecurity in the country, but also due to transparency in the systems in which certain approaches are implemented. Yeah. And this is where we have very positive experiences on working with line ministries on concrete topics. Let's stay in energy. One topic, one challenge why there is not much investment and why there is also challenges for the Nigerian government to implement transparent systems and investments is because there is no data on where is there electricity, where do we have communities, where do we have buildings, how many people live there. Okay. So we have supported the Nigerian government, and I think that's one of the biggest milestones in mapping out with a digitalized approach 22 states in which we now have data on where there are communities, what the electricity situation is. We are offering this open source for free for any investor, any government institution, that needs to have more information. And that, of course, provides the basis for more transparent procedures also. So I think it's a discussion we have to also continue with the Nigerian government on how to further improve with regards to transparency and governance in the country.
Okay. Well, for the sake of the program, we had to take off our face mask. But you know it's a global challenge. Has this affected your operations?
It has affected our operations last year because, of course, we were very dedicated to continue supporting the Nigerian government, especially with refocusing some of our activities on the economic effects that COVID-19 might have. If we look into the economic effects, there is, of course, a huge point of concern that we might have 25% more of the population going into poverty, with 65% of the overall population potentially being below poverty lines. And that's something where we have really reboosted a number of activities which the German government then offered to the Nigerian government with regards to skills development, youth employment, economic growth, also activities on cash for work, direct remedy measures in order to ensure that we can help to remedy the situation in line with what the Nigerian government has already set up as programs.
Ms. Ina Hommers, it was nice having you on Diplomatic Ties.
Thank you so much, Mr. Odin, for having me.
Well, we believe you enjoyed the program while it lasted. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.